is the Happy Scientist Podcast. Each episode is designed to make you more focused, more productive, and more satisfied in the lab. You can find us online at bitesizebio.com/happy scientist. Your hosts are Kenneth Vogt, founder of the executive coaching firm Vera Claritas, and Dr. Nick Oswald, PhD, bioscientist, and founder of Bitesize Bio.
Hello and welcome to this new episode where we will be talking about dropping grudges, how dropping grudges will change your life.
Have you ever had a grudge before? Have you ever wondered if your justification for your grudge is actually the right thing to do? Or is there a way out? Can you let go of that stuff? Because sometimes, you're so justified. You're so right. And it just seems like you should pursue that. So we're going to talk about grudges, and we're going to talk about why dropping grudges is going to improve your life. It's going to make your career easier. It's just going to be better for you. But before we jump on that, the first thing we got to do is define it. So what actually constitutes a grudge? What do you have to say about that, Nick?
Well, it's when you think you're right and someone else is wrong and you hold it against them, or someone else has wronged you, I guess.
Sure. And it's so it's got this moral component to it. It's not just a matter of you said 2 + 2 = 5 and you're wrong, and now I can never trust anything you say. I mean, that's just a factual inaccuracy, but grudges take it to a different place. Grudges become emotional. So and you can just by that definition, you can look at that and go, I can see how this could cause problems in my career and how it could cause problems in my life. So one of the things you have to do is you got to see where you're doing it. Where am I actually doing it? Because many people will say to you, well, I don't hold grudges. In fact, I was looking for quotes on this, and there was just quote after quote after quote of all these people saying, I never hold grudges. And I'm like, yeah, I bet.
I guess is one of the tests, do you feel like a victim?
Right. So that is the question. How do you do a grudge? I mean, what are the methods that people use to hold a grudge? So when you mentioned one is play victim. Is there anything else come to mind?
I guess that you must be assuming that you're being, I don't know, you're morally superior to the other person, or
yeah, and that notion of moral superiority, it can be taken to practically a religious level, but it could just be an ethical thing. It may just feel like, I'm so sick of this guy always showing up late for every meeting because he thinks he's so important and we're obviously so unimportant. And now we have a grudge about this. Yeah. Hey, he was here on time today, folks.
That's amazing.
But the point is, it could just be, the facts may be, okay, here's somebody that's late a lot. That happens. And sometimes it's disruptive. Okay, that may be happening too. But the grudge about it is like a separate thing, and it starts to affect how you're interacting with people.
It builds up.
You will find, and it'll affect you in two ways. On one way, it'll be, you might treat someone with less respect. You might trust them less. But you may also find yourself grouping up with other people so that, you can have a common enemy. and you're creating that enemy. It's not even a real thing. It's just, so you can see how you can get layers into this. And now you can get to where, like, maybe you don't have a grudge, but you've created a group that has a grudge. And even if you personally are free of it because you've associated with the group, now you're still having to play it out. and it's still going to impact your behavior and the behavior of people around you. So I mean, that's one of the ways that a grudge could be bad for you, and that it can start to negatively impact your social arrangements. And but is there anything else there that you might want to comment on, Nick, about how grudges can be bad for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like anything, isn't it? If something builds up resentment, it's hurting you because you're holding on to that, and it changes your behavior. And you know, it can really spiral up if you keep going, and if you keep it going, and if you keep building on it and looking for new evidence of why that person is all
Yeah,
that, and
I was
why
thinking
you're
about that
right.
notion of new evidence, because we'll do that, and we'll make it true. And here's the proof. I've got new evidence, right? They were late again. See? Yeah, and obviously that shows they don't care about my time and they don't respect me. And we'll, even if we're not saying that kind of stuff out loud, we are saying it to ourselves, and it's going to impact our relationships. And relationships are going to matter if you're going to have a successful career.
And then you do that, so you build that up, you make it more, you wind yourself up into more of a frenzy. It has an impact on the other person, so they start reacting to that, and then off you go. Off you both go. That's potentially that. Yeah.
And it could be that one of the reasons you have a grudge isn't that you started it; they started it. They have a grudge against you. Well, now you feel all righteously indignant. How dare they? Yeah. I mean, I walk in 3 minutes late and they act like the world ended. and so then they start to justify and they start to develop a grudge against you. And if you're on the receiving end of that, you start to develop a new grudge. So and you can look at this and say, see, it's not my fault. They made me. But it's we do get to decide how we are going to operate in the world. We don't have to be pathed by anyone or anything. So that does bring to mind that if we're gonna resolve that kind of thing, well, if you have a grudge against someone, you probably have something that you consider to be justification. So how do you let go of that with integrity? How do you do that? How do you well, because I had a good reason to have a grudge. Well, if I just let it go, am I not letting go of my own integrity? What do you think about that?
Well, I guess I'm thinking that you go one step back first, and first you've got to be really honest with yourself. As are you holding it, to what constitutes a grudge? And I know that's why you've opened with talking about that. But it occurs to me there's things where you can go, yeah, I'm holding a grudge there. It's quite obvious to you. But if you go, if I think about it for myself, it's like the definition is much wider than what I would immediately think as a grudge. The definition is much wider. Anything you're holding against anyone that changes the way that you think about them is by definition a grudge. So how do you let that go? I guess that the first thing is, for me, would be not realizing that I might not be right.
Exactly.
What makes me right?
Yeah, it's a really powerful thing to have humility and realize I'm not always right. Another way you can look at it is how much emotional charge is there here? Is this just a practical matter? They don't ever put their tools away. Okay, and that's a problem. And means sometimes it's hard to find things that we need, or things are messy, or perhaps they're even hazardous. You can have all of that observation with no emotional charge. Or you can look at it where you'll walk in and like, this person's dangerous. They're going to get somebody killed around here. Why are they wrecking my lab? Why are they ruining my life? And now it's all about the emotional part. It's not even about the facts anymore. And so when it comes to letting go of a grudge with integrity, I'd say the first place to start is get the emotional layer off, and realize, okay, that's not the truth with a capital T. That's just my reaction. And once you scrape away that emotional layer, you may find that the underlying facts aren't that hard to deal with. And And it's not to say that you're not justified, that something is out of kilter. And maybe it's something that ought to be fixed. But maybe it's something you can't do anything about. Because, like, for instance, you could have a grudge against your boss, and they have the authority to do it the way they're doing it, and you can't change it. So are you going to hang on to that grudge because it's unchangeable? Or are you going to recognize, well, there's a hierarchy here, and the hierarchy exists for a certain purpose, and right now that hierarchy is not helping me out, but it is what it is. You know?
Yeah. It's interesting. I was talking to someone about this recently, about the grief that I used to give my boss about, the way that I thought things should be. And then now I come to the thing where I'm running a business, and I think, okay, now I can see his point of view, and I was in the wrong there, or at least my
and we've all had that feeling about our parents in the past.
Exactly. It's that Mark Twain thing. I'm amazed at how much the old man has learned in the 7 years since me being 16 to 23 or whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, I guess that's back to realizing that your perspective is limited, though, isn't it?
Right. And it's a really powerful thing that if you are a experienced, educated, renowned scientist, you still have a limit in your perspective. You still only see what you see. And boy, never lose that. I don't care how many Nobel Prizes you win. Never lose that.
I don't. You might argue that the more you go, I mean, that's one of the challenges of you become more educated, or you become more older and more experienced and whatnot. And the challenge is not to hold all those grudges and let them reinforce each other, or not even grudges, but just biases, and let them reinforce each other, and then it makes it easier for you to hold a grudge, sort of thing. It's the challenge of being able to do that once you've become more and more, you've gone further and further down a path, if you like. If that makes sense? It might be more difficult to do it, even as a Nobel Prize winning scientist, as a presumably very experienced scientist. You're very far down one road. You might have picked up viewpoints and things that make it more difficult to see things in another, from someone else's perspective, compared to a 10-year-old child or something like that.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, you may look at that and think, "Oh, look at them. They're very innocent eyes, and of course they're questioning this because they just don't get it." So it got me thinking about the idea of politics. And I mean office politics, lab politics, not politics on the world scene, but that kind of grudge is really scary. If somebody stabbed you in the back, somebody stole a sweet project away from you, or they got funding that should have went to you in your estimation, or something along those lines, where you got hurt, something happened and it was damaging. And I don't just mean you got your feelings hurt. It might have really been damaging to your career, or it might have been at least a setback for you. And so you could look at that and go, well, how am I supposed to let that go? Am I supposed to trust this person now after they did me so wrong? It's like, well, no. The opposite of grudge is not trust. You don't have to replace one with the other. You can still look at them as being as dubious as they actually are. There's no reason you have to lose your awareness that I got to be careful. This person could do something like this again, or what they've already done may continue to cause harm. That's fine. But if you're spending all your time thinking about how you're going to get them back, how you're going to hurt them the way they hurt you, you're going to waste so many cycles, so many brain cycles. You're going to detour your creativity to something that's just useless, that's not going to be helping. And and you need your brain cycles. You're doing hard work, you're doing difficult work, and you can't waste it on holding grudges against people and holding mock trials in your head.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Do you want to use your RAM up, to use the computer analogy, on solving problems, or on being angry at someone that you think has wronged you? And because also what happens is it only generates stress for you, primarily it generates stress for you, and that's, that must be where a lot of stress comes from, I would guess.
Sure. Well, it's stress that you have control over. If you didn't create it, it wouldn't be there. So now the one other thing I wanted to cover too is to flip this around, because sometimes we're on the receiving end of a grudge. Somebody has a grudge against us. And there's two possibilities here. One is we earned it. We deserve the grudge they have against us. We're the one that, screwed something up for them. Okay. But in other cases, it's like, I don't have this coming. They aren't seeing it fairly. So given those two circumstances, what do you do? What do you do if you've earned a grudge? What do you do if somebody has a grudge against you that you don't deserve?
You're asking me what I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're the guy. You're the guy that knows this stuff.
Okay. All right. So let's start with, you've earned a grudge. Yeah. The first thing is to come to terms with it. They have a grudge against me because they should have a grudge against me, because I did what they have asserted I've done. All right. Well, the first thing to do then is to try and make it right. Is there a way you can unwind any potential harm that had been done? Is it a conversation? Sometimes it's just, you just got to talk to people, and you got to sit somebody down and say, listen, in this setting, we were in this meeting, and I contradicted you right in front of all these people, and I could see it bothered you, and I see it hurt your reputation to a certain extent, and I want to acknowledge that happened, and I want to make right what might have been wrong on my part. Maybe that wasn't the right time for it. Maybe it wasn't the right place. Maybe I went too far. But then again, maybe I didn't. Maybe, I just embarrassed you, and I'm sorry about that. That was not my purpose. I didn't line up to do that. I mean, presuming it wasn't your purpose. If you did, if you embarrass somebody because you meant to embarrass them, wow, you got to go back, dig a little deeper in yourself and figure that out. But often you do have to go back to somebody and do your mea culpas. You got to say, yep, this is what happened, and I understand why you're not happy about it, and you are fair to be upset about it. And so conversation can help. Sometimes there are things you can do to make up for it. And when you have opportunities like that, perhaps you can praise them in front of somebody important, legitimately in another setting, or maybe you can recommend them for something that where your say so would matter. You can take those opportunities and try and undo the grudge they can hold against you, because you don't want them to have a grudge against you. Grudges aren't just a problem for you. That if they have a grudge against you, it'll still be a problem for you. So if you can unwind it, it's still worth the cost. It's worth eating a little crow sometimes. It's worth it admitting you were wrong if you were wrong. So there's all that. Now, if it's something where you weren't wrong, they've got a grudge, but it's like, look, they were about to launch into something, and they were going to burn a bunch of money. They were going to do something dangerous. They were going to do something that would be harmful to our cause. And I had to speak up. I couldn't let it keep going. Well, yeah, in that setting, you might go, well, I can't back down because I'm not wrong, in this setting. After you've re-examined and made sure that you're coming from the right place. So in a situation like that, if you can have a conversation with somebody privately and clear the air, that's optimal. Sometimes they're emotional about it and they're not going to be able to receive it that way, and there's nothing you can do about that. You may not be able to win them over in that regard, but what you got to watch for in a situation like that is, if they really don't have a legitimate cause to have a grudge against you, you're in a much safer position. If there's anything at all about it that's legitimate, you got to deal with that. You have to face it, and you gotta work through that. But if somebody's just got an irrational grudge against you, that will show up in front of other people. Other people will realize they're not being fair. And so your protection is to make sure that, as far as it depends upon you, you've been as peaceable about it as can be. You've done everything you could do. You publicly demonstrated that you tried to have dialogue with them, and you've admitted their strong, if they've got some strong points that are valid. You've not admitted, maybe too the wrong word, but you've acknowledged that they're strong points, but you're also going to stick to your guns about their weak points. And sometimes you'll win people over that way. Sometimes, there's nothing you can do. They're going to be vengeful. That's just what they're going to do. And you can't beat it, and you can't worry about it, but I love that phrase, though, insofar as it depends upon you. Do the part you can do. So that's what it's like to be on the receiving end of an unfair grudge.
I guess that what all of that requires is quite a lot of honesty. On one side, quite a lot of honesty on your part, even about that might be quite painful. It's easier to not look at what you've done or is it easier to stick to your viewpoint and not allow the kind of the pain that comes from realizing you were wrong on one side? But then I guess the downside of that as well is that that you could just go too far and just lie about that it was all me when it wasn't, because it's the easier way out of the argument. So how do you kind of balance that?
Well, I think we have to have an adherence to the truth. So it being self-denigrating when it's not accurate isn't helping your cause. People will respect you if you will admit when you're wrong, but they won't respect you if you admit to wrongs you have not committed, and they know it. They know. Come on, why are you being such a doormat? That's not a respectable place to come from. On the other hand, though, if you can maintain your self-respect and your self-confidence, one of the easiest ways to do that is to admit to small wrongs as quickly as possible. Get in front of things before they get out of hand. Before you just can't save face. It's so much easier to go, I dropped the ball there, or I missed that, or I was wrong in that conclusion. And that's very disarming.
Yeah. However, there is the politician's use of that, of disarming it and then never doing anything about it. So I guess you've got to follow up and be sincere that it's not just about saying it.
Yeah, it's about integrity. And I love the word integrity because of its physical meaning. We talk about integrity in something, the physical integrity of something. It's that it's holding together. And if you start there from the physics definition of integrity and start to apply it into human interaction, well, now integrity isn't just, it's not just a moral thing. It's a practical thing, a very practical thing. So it's worth it, even if you don't want to go down this philosophical road. it's what works. And that's what we want here. The whole point is to have a career that makes sense and where you can keep moving forward and keep building. And grudges are not going to get you there. They're just not going to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a good bottom line there is that grudges don't help you or anyone else, and to realize that when you're holding them, be really kind of the more, I guess the more aggressive is not the right word, but the more the looser your definition of a grudge, and the better for you, because the less kind of it's like sand in the gears, that thing with relationships.
Yeah.
Grudges
are
the less,
baggage. How
yeah,
much
the less
baggage
you have
can
of
you
that,
carry around?
yeah, and the more honest, the more you can reflect on what are you doing that's causing these things, or what can you do, what can you honestly say to other people that's causing these things, to the other parties, to help resolve. Then the worst thing you could do is assume that you're right and stay in the same position all the time and keep making these things build up, or keep assuming you're wrong and allow them to build up like that as well. So
worse yet, saying you're wrong when you don't believe you are. Oh my!
all that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's about all I have to say about grudges today. How about you, Nick?
Good. No, I think that's. I won't hold a grudge for you continually talking about me being late, but it's fine. Everyone does. It's quite funny. I'm getting better. Anyway, it's good. I'm taking on
Yes,
board
you
the
are.
feedback. Yeah, I think that's quite useful, and hopefully people can see where they can apply that in their lives. And please hit us up on our Facebook group if you would like to do that. I guess that all that's left to do is to say thanks, Ken, for another great episode, and we'll talk to you all again next time.
All right. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you for listening to the Happy Scientist podcast, helping you to become a happier, healthier, and more productive scientist. To get more Happy Scientist podcast episodes and all of our downloadables, please go to bitesizebio.com/The Happy Scientist, all one word. And in particular, you might want to spend some time on episodes 1 to 9, where we talk about the foundational principles of human needs, core mindsets, and charisma factors, which we refer to in many episodes. You can also hook up with us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Happy Scientist Podcast, all one word, to get latest episodes and additional material. We hope to see you there.
The Happy Scientist is brought to you by Bitesize Bio, your mentor in the lab. Bitesize Bio features thousands of articles and webinars contributed by hundreds of PhD scientists and scientific companies who freely offer their hard-won wisdom and solutions to the Bitesize Bio community.